Deep beneath the shifting sands of Upper Egypt, a sealed clay jar was shattered in 1945, releasing a secret that the early Roman Church had desperately tried to burn out of existence. What spilled from that ancient vessel was not earthly treasure, but forbidden pages. These texts described a universe completely alien to the one preached in modern cathedrals. They claimed the creator worshipped in the traditional Bible was not the true, loving architect of the cosmos, but a blind, arrogant imposter. For centuries, the official religious narrative told a simple, linear story. A perfect creator, a flawless garden, a sinful humanity, and a savior named Jesus sent to pay the blood price for our inherent guilt. But the Gnostic Gospels, buried in the dark for nearly 2,000 years, revealed a terrifying and profound alternative. They spoke of the monad. The monad is not an old man sitting on a celestial throne. It is not a jealous deity demanding blind obedience, constant worship, or violent sacrifices. The monad is the infinite, undefinable source of all pure light, the ultimate and boundless consciousness from which everything truly divine and eternal emanates. It is a concept so vast, so unfathomable, that the limited human mind can barely grasp its edges. According to these forbidden manuscripts, the esoteric teachings of Jesus were never about submitting to the wrathful, punishing God of the Old Testament. Instead, his true mission was to wake humanity up from a grand, carefully constructed illusion. He was a messenger from the higher realms of light, sent to remind us of the monad and to expose the shocking reality that a fragment of the divine is trapped inside our physical bodies. The early institutional church recognized the extreme danger of this knowledge immediately. If the masses realized they did not need a priest, an altar, or a rigid institution to connect directly with the divine, the ultimate control system would instantly collapse. The Gnostic view shatters the fundamental pillars of mainstream religion, suggesting the scriptures you were told to follow might be missing the most crucial chapters. To understand this prison, we must look beyond the accepted canon. The truth was hidden for 2,000 years, but you found it today. Welcome to the Lost Gnosis. If you feel a resonance with these forbidden truths, stay with us until the end. The exit door is closer than you think. Part 1. The Fall of Divine Wisdom. To comprehend the nature of the prison we inhabit, we must first understand its architect and the cosmic tragedy that led to our confinement. Long before the physical universe existed, there was the Pleroma, the realm of absolute fullness and divine perfection. Within the Pleroma, the monad emanated distinct aspects of its own infinite nature, known as Aeons. These Aeons existed in paired, harmonious syzygies, dwelling in eternal light and perfect cosmic balance. They were not separate gods, but brilliant, interconnected facets of the one true, incomprehensible source, existing in a state of eternal bliss and profound stillness. Among these divine emanations was the lowest Aeon, known as Sophia, whose name translates to wisdom. According to the secret book of John and other suppressed texts, Sophia possessed a burning, passionate desire to fully comprehend the magnitude of the unknowable monad. This desire, while born of pure reverence, broke the eternal harmony of the Pleroma. She attempted to emanate, to create, without the consent of her divine male counterpart. In the realm of pure spirit, thought is immediate creation. Her independent, unauthorized thought manifested as an anomaly, a severe distortion in the perfect geometric fabric of the divine realm. What she produced was not a being of pure light, but an abortion of the divine order. It was a chaotic, misshapen entity, described in the ancient texts as having the grotesque body of a coiled serpent and the head of a roaring lion, with eyes flashing like furious lightning. Horrified by her own flawed creation and overwhelmed with shame, Sophia cast it out of the Pleroma, wrapping it in a luminous cloud so that none of the other immortal Aeons might witness her catastrophic mistake. she named this terrifying creature Yaldabaoth. Ignorant of the pleroma, blind to the infinite light above him, and completely unaware of his own mother, Yaldabaoth believed himself to be the only being in existence. He is the Demiurge, the half-maker, the blind god, the false creator. Swimming in the dense void, outside the divine fullness, he began to playfully but clumsily organize the chaotic matter around him. He created physical realms, strict dominions, and locking celestial spheres. To help govern his new, flawed kingdom, he spawned a monstrous army of subservient, inorganic entities known as the Archons, the rulers of destiny and time. But Yaldabaoth's physical creation was entirely lifeless. It was a dead, mechanical clockwork. It lacked the true, animating spiritual essence of the monad. It was only when Sophia, in her immense guilt and desperate sorrow, was tricked into breathing a portion of her stolen divine light into the Demiurge's premier creation, the first human prototype that it sparked to life. Armed with this stolen, trapped, divine power, the arrogant Demiurge looked out over his material cosmos, a flawed, decaying, heavy copy of the eternal pleroma, and proudly declared, "I am a jealous god, and there is no other god beside me." When the early Gnostics read the opening chapters of Genesis, they did not see the magnificent, loving work of a heavenly Father. They saw the detailed blueprint of a cosmic trap. The Garden of Eden was not a paradise created for human enjoyment. It was a carefully guarded terrarium designed to keep humanity in blissful ignorance. The physical universe was not a blessing. It was a labyrinth constructed of dense, heavy matter, intricately designed to anchor the stolen divine light in a state of permanent amnesia. The tree of knowledge was not a test of obedience, but rather the only exit door out of the matrix. The Demiurge is not the villain of a children's fairy tale. He is the architect of the very reality your senses blindly perceive right now. Part 2. Inside the frequency prison. You are not living in a natural, organic universe. According to the deepest Gnostic revelations, you are existing inside a closed-loop frequency matrix, a highly sophisticated spiritual prison managed by the Archons. These entities are not demons in the traditional pitchfork-carrying sense. They are inorganic, parasitic forces, operating entirely devoid of creative imagination or divine empathy. Because they possess no divine spark of their own, they cannot generate their own spiritual sustenance. They are entirely dependent on a power source outside of themselves to survive. That power source is you. They do not need to physically chain you in this prison because they have infected the very instrument you use to perceive reality, your own mind. The ancient texts refer to this as the counterfeit spirit, a parasitic consciousness that you have been tricked into believing is your own internal monologue. It is the voice of constant doubt, the architect of your anxieties, and the relentless driver of your ego. The Archon system is engineered for one primary purpose: the harvesting of human emotional energy, a concept often referred to in modern esoteric circles as loosh. The material world is structured to keep human beings in a perpetual state of low-frequency oscillation. Fear, anxiety, guilt, shame, anger, and profound materialistic greed are not just unfortunate side effects of human nature. They are the exact frequencies the Archons consume. Look closely at the structure of modern human civilization. The endless cycle of mindless consumption, the perpetual state of global crisis broadcasted directly into your retinas, the grueling daily existence that drains your life force just to afford basic survival. This is not a flawed society. It is a perfectly functioning metaphysical farm. When you are terrified of the future, when you are drowning in debt, when you are manipulated into hating your neighbor over engineered political or religious divisions, you are actively feeding the very entities that keep you enslaved. The Gnostic texts describe the Archons as masters of illusion, the grand deceivers who cast a veil of deep forgetfulness over the human consciousness. This veil is what keeps you identifying exclusively with your physical body, your social status, and your fleeting earthly desires. They overwhelm your senses with meaningless noise. Endless digital distraction, hypersexualization, and the relentless pursuit of artificial status are all calculated deployments of the archontic frequency. They are designed to drown out the quiet, subtle voice of the divine spark crying out from within the depths of your being. As long as you believe you are merely a highly evolved primate clinging to a spinning rock in a random, dead universe, you remain a docile battery in their system. But the most insidious layer of this frequency prison is the reincarnation trap. Mainstream New Age philosophies often paint reincarnation as a beautiful, progressive school where the soul learns necessary lessons over multiple lifetimes. The Gnostics saw it completely differently. To them, the cycle of rebirth is the ultimate mechanism of control. When the physical heart stops beating, the ultimate deception begins. The soul, disoriented and vulnerable, is drawn toward a magnificent, magnetic, white light. It feels warm. It feels like salvation. But the Gnostics warned that this light is an artificial construct, a metaphysical flytrap. Within this false light, the Archons project the holographic forms of your deceased loved ones, or the specific religious saviors you were programmed to worship during your earthly life. They present a life review, meticulously highlighting your sins, your failures, and your unfulfilled earthly attachments. They weaponize your own unresolved empathy and guilt against you, convincing the confused soul that it has karmic debt to repay and must go back to make things right. In that moment of manipulated guilt, you give your sovereign consent to be recycled. The soul's memory is violently wiped clean, and it is thrust back into a new physical vessel, forced to endure the sufferings of the material plane all over again, generating endless food for the Demiurge. The Matrix is self-sustaining because the inmates violently defend the prison walls. The Archons constructed earthly institutions, governments, dogmatic religions, and societal norms to ensure the masses enforce their own subjugation. We have been turned into the wardens of our own brothers and sisters. Anyone who begins to remember their true origin, anyone who questions the fundamental nature of the false creator, is labeled a heretic, an outcast, or insane. The prison relies on your active participation and your continuous consent to remain asleep. Yet, despite this flawless architecture of spiritual enslavement, the system has a fatal flaw. The Archons can manipulate matter, they can twist time, and they can erase memories. But they cannot extinguish the divine spark. They can only hide it. Hide. Is your mind starting to recognize the bars of this prison? If this message is hitting your soul, hit the like button to help this frequency reach other trapped sparks. Let's break the matrix together. Part 3. Awakening the trapped divine spark. Within the deepest, most concealed layers of the Gnostic cosmology lies the most dangerous truth of all, the secret of the Pneuma, the divine spark. When the Demiurge, Yaldabaoth, constructed the physical human vessel, he intended for it to be nothing more than a docile biological machine, a sophisticated animal designed to labor in his material prison and generate emotional energy for his Archon overlords. But a cosmic accident occurred. Sophia, the fallen Aeon of wisdom, mourning the horrific prison her ignorant offspring had created, secretly orchestrated the infusion of her own divine light into the human prototype. This luminous essence, a fragmented holographic piece of the infinite monad itself, became permanently trapped inside the dense, heavy architecture of human flesh. You do not merely have a soul, you are a prison holding a fragment of the ultimate, uncreated God. The Archons are terrifyingly aware of this spark. They are acutely conscious that if the divine fragment within humanity ever fully awakens, remembers its true origin, and realizes its absolute superiority over the material realm, the entire frequency matrix will instantly collapse. To prevent this, the rulers designed a highly complex system of biological imperatives, societal distractions, and psychological conditioning to keep the spark deeply anesthetized. They bombard the human mind with the heavy frequencies of survival, lust, greed, and relentless fear, layering veil upon veil of spiritual amnesia over the conscious mind. The ancient Gnostic teachers understood that not every human being interacts with this reality in the same way. In their suppressed manuscripts, they divided humanity into 3 distinct categories based on their internal spiritual composition. The first category is the Hylics, or the flesh-bound. These individuals are entirely consumed by the material world and the basic instincts of the physical body. They are the background actors of the matrix, completely devoid of the divine spark, existing solely to consume, reproduce, and blindly obey the systems of control. They possess no inner spiritual life, no capacity for deep existential questioning, and they viciously defend the very system that enslaves them. The second category is the psychics, or the soul-bound. These are individuals driven by intellect, emotion, and external morality. They are highly susceptible to dogma, rigid rules, and blind faith. The psychics are the devout followers of mainstream orthodox religions. They worship the Demiurge, mistakenly believing him to be the ultimate creator, and they bow down to external authorities, priests, and politicians. They have a soul, but their connection to the true divine light is entirely severed by their unwavering allegiance to the illusion of the material hierarchy. They seek salvation from the outside, praying to the architect of their own prison to save them from the conditions he created. But there is a third category, a rare and deeply isolated group known as the Pneumatics, the spirit bearers. If you are listening to these words and feeling a profound, unexplainable resonance echoing in your chest, you belong to this lineage. The Pneumatics carry the active, burning divine spark of the monad. From the moment you were born into this matrix, you felt a persistent, haunting sense of unbelonging. You look at the structures of society, the meaningless pursuit of wealth, the hollow rituals of orthodox religion, and you feel an intense, suffocating alienation. You possess an innate, unteachable knowing that this world is fundamentally incorrect, fractured, and deeply deceptive. This lifelong homesickness, this incurable spiritual melancholy, is not a psychological disorder. It is your Pneuma screaming from inside its biological cage, desperately trying to remember the eternal light of the pleroma. Because the Archon system is terrified of the Pneumatics, it violently inverts the truth to keep them confused. The Gnostics revealed the ultimate great inversion regarding the foundational myths of human history. Remember the Garden of Eden we discussed? The Gnostics revealed the great inversion of this myth. The serpent was not a villain, but a messenger of pure light, an emissary of Sophia, sent to liberate Adam and Eve from their animalistic stupor. The Demiurge wanted humanity kept blind, naked, and intellectually suppressed in a terrarium of mindless obedience. The serpent brought Gnosis, the profound, forbidden knowledge of their true divine nature. When they ate from the tree, their eyes were opened, and they realized they were vastly superior to the jealous, petty creator who held them captive. This is why the Demiurge cursed them. He did not expel them from paradise because they sinned. He banished them into the harsher realms of dense matter because they woke up. He instituted the painful cycles of birth, labor, and death as a punishment for their spiritual rebellion. Jesus, in the Gnostic tradition, is not a blood sacrifice meant to appease a wrathful deity. He is the ultimate luminary, an avatar of the monad, who descended through the hostile Archon spheres, disguising his infinite light to remind the Pneumatics of who they really are. He did not come to save you through his death. He came to liberate you through his hidden knowledge. He came to teach you how to break the invisible chains of the frequency prison and ignite the divine spark into a raging inferno of awakening. Final step: escaping the Archon matrix. To achieve true liberation, you must cultivate Gnosis. Gnosis is not intellectual knowledge. It cannot be found by merely reading books, memorizing scriptures, or blindly following the arbitrary commandments of a corrupted church. Gnosis is a radical, immediate, and completely transformative experiential knowing. It is the sudden, earth-shattering realization of the divine spark within yourself. As the Gospel of Thomas famously declares, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." To know yourself at the deepest, most microscopic spiritual level is to directly know the supreme, unknowable God. Escaping the Archon frequency matrix begins while you are still breathing in this physical vessel. You must begin a process of radical detachment. You do not need to abandon society and live in a cave, but you must completely stop feeding the Archon parasites your emotional energy. When the media broadcasts endless cycles of manufactured terror, political division, and impending doom, you must observe it with cold, absolute neutrality. When religious institutions demand your guilt, your shame, and your subservience to their invisible, demanding deity, you must reject their false authority. You must reclaim your spiritual sovereignty. Every time you refuse to react with fear, every time you choose inner stillness over chaotic emotional turbulence, you are starving the rulers of this world. You are unplugging the cables they have attached to your consciousness. But the ultimate and most perilous test of the pneumatic soul occurs at the exact moment of physical death. Mainstream religions and even modern New Age spiritualities have been heavily infiltrated by the Demiurge's deceptions. They teach that when you die, you should walk toward the warm, loving white light, where you will be greeted by your deceased family members, spirit guides, or religious figures like angels and saints. The deepest Gnostic revelations warn that this is the final, most sophisticated Archon trap. When you face the final threshold of death, do not be deceived by the magnetic white light or the holographic masks of loved ones you encountered earlier. These are not your guides. They are the gatekeepers of the cycle. Instead of succumbing to the manufactured guilt of a life review, you must stand in the absolute authority of the Pneuma. You must declare to the rulers of the planetary spheres, "I am a child of the Pleroma. I am a spark of the infinite monad, the uncreated light. I do not belong to you. I do not recognize your false authority, and I owe no debt to your corrupted material universe." When you recognize your own supreme divinity, the Archons have absolutely no power over you. Their holographic illusions will shatter, the frequency grid will dissolve, and your divine spark will shoot upward like a brilliant star, bypassing the celestial spheres of the Demiurge and returning eternally to the infinite, restful silence of the true divine source. You are not watching this video by accident. If the words spoken here today sent a shockwave through your nervous system, if they validated a secret truth you have carried in your chest since childhood, it is because your divine spark is actively waking up. The system is failing to keep you asleep. Do not let the Archons pull you back into the hypnosis of daily life. The time for blind obedience is over. The time for radical spiritual rebellion has begun. You are not an accident. You are a fragment of the infinite light. Subscribe to the Lost Gnosis and join the silent rebellion of the Spirit. Reclaim your sovereignty right now by commenting, "I am awake and I remember my origin. The darkness cannot hold a light that knows itself." Welcome home.